FBI with respect to the Form 1023 is, what did you do to investigate this allegation? But they won't answer our question.
That is this cover-up. You have spoken with whistleblowers. You also spoke with an informant who gave you all of this information. Where is that informant today? Where are these whistleblowers?
Well, unfortunately, we can't track down the informant. We're hopeful that the informant is still there.
Did you just say that the whistleblower or the informant is now missing? Are there whistleblowers or informants missing right now?
We have people that want to come forward, but honestly, Maria, they fear for their lives. Not only are the Biden lawyers and the Biden White House intimidating them, the media is trying to intimidate and discredit them.
Advice he was getting about the CIA was from the man who created it, and that was Harry Truman. So Truman is saying to him, listen, don't listen to these guys. You know, they'll tell you one thing and do another. And really what you need to be doing is developing a whole new approach with them. This is Truman's attitude by the time the Kennedy assassination happens.
200,000 Americans lost their lives fighting the Nazis in World War II, and yet hundreds of those Nazis and their collaborators eventually wound up living comfortably here in the United States, becoming U.S. citizens. Of how highly placed U.S. officials, despite the express orders of two presidents of the United States, invited Nazi collaborators, killers, to these shores.
Several hundred Nazi collaborators from Eastern Europe and Russia were smuggled into the United States for intelligence purposes.
Smuggled by whom?
State Department intelligence, specifically the Office of Policy Coordination. It was the first covert spy agency set up in the United States. It predated the CIA by several months.
His name is John Loftus, and for 2 years he was a prosecutor with the Office of Special Investigations in the Department of Justice. His security clearance went 3 levels above top secret.
We had one unit of the government out trying to prosecute the Nazis, and other units of the government trying to secrete the information. We later established that the files pertaining to the Nazi immigration had been withheld from Congress, from the courts, from the CIA, and from the local agents of the immigration. I read some classified information that indicated that a number of these programs were approved at the highest levels. And I would say that as a conservative estimate, there are more than 300 Belarusian Nazis living in America today. Some are still working for the government.
On him. You were a propagandist for the Nazis. Then you became an informer for the U.S. Army.
Yes.
Intelligence.
Yes.
And then it was as a result of that that you were brought into the United States.
Yes. That's
okay.
Generally that's right. Yes.
So that you knew that you came into the United States illegally.
Yes, yes.
You knew that?
No, I came legally, and I told everything about my background when I was admitted to USA.
To the FBI?
Yeah, of course.
And the FBI said?
And FBI said, all right, we knew this. And
we knew you were a Nazi collaborator.
Yes, and
we knew that you helped Army intelligence.
Yeah.
We'll reward you in spite of the fact that you were a Nazi collaborator.
That's right.
By the late 1970s, with stories continuing to surface about Nazi war criminals in the United States, a House Congressional Committee chaired by then-Congressman Joshua Eilberg requested files on 111 alleged Nazi war criminals living in America. In 1978, the Congress was finally trying to get to the bottom of the Nazi connection. On behalf of Congress, John Tipton, a GAO investigator, requested all intelligence files on alleged Nazis living in America. That they lied to you and said they had nothing on this individual.
That seems to be the case.
So the Congress was misled back in 1978.
That's correct. They routinely were deleting all documents showing that the government had assisted their entry. And I caught them at it. We went down and confronted the Army officials, and they said that they thought that we knew all about the sanitizing program. Apparently it's a routine procedure with them. And the procedure was established many years ago, and they were just following routine orders. And for one day, I was allowed to look through the dossiers with no deletions, and of the 10 dossiers I looked at, 3 had letters evidencing government assistance in entering the United States. The most infuriating part was that these people had confessed over and over again to the intelligence agencies. We had all the information on their war crimes and their atrocities, and we couldn't use one piece of that material in court.
Now, it's not something that's widely known or brought up around the Central Intelligence Agency, but the CIA was created originally after they got rid of the OSS during the war, the Office of Strategic Services, which was an intel branch. And so they created the Central Intelligence Group, but then they were like, well, let's have an agency really develop the whole thing. And Truman was absolutely against it at every turn. He said, it's an American Gestapo, no way. But he's talked into it. And he says, well, you're going to give the intelligence directly to the president. Now, there's a group in there that is around at the same time, and they're called the Office of Policy Coordination, OPC. Go into this pose where they start to sabotage elections overseas. So they think that they have a blank check to do anything that they want. And this OPC becomes so radical and starts doing all these covert operations that Truman calls in the Central Intelligence Agency and says, you got to stop these people because they're doing things that are completely outside of their purview, and I haven't sanctioned any of it. Get them under your umbrella, get them under control. Instead of being taken under control by the Central Intelligence Agency, they take over. Why it becomes an extra constitutional agency. They're already thinking in this lawless fashion. Even though it's set up initially under the idea of some kind of military protocol and feeding intelligence back to the president, what happens is it's set up in a New York law firm that deals with international finance, Sullivan and Cromwell. So, and Dulles is the one who really is crucial to setting it up and will be its director from 53 to 61 until Kennedy fires him. This is the pipeline of international finance directly through, high finance, Wall Street, New York. All of this military intelligence gathering, suddenly it has a purpose which crisscrosses with the Wall Street interests and the international finance around this law firm. Through that power of the government, and one of the things that happens in the background there is they given this mandate that no matter what they do, they can't be prosecuted. It was never envisioned by the Founding Fathers, and it was only thought of as a way to deal with extraordinary circumstances.
Washington, D.C., late 2019. The International Consortium of Investigative Journalists began receiving a trove of leaked documents. Nearly 12 million confidential financial files from firms that set up shell companies and offshore accounts for clients seeking to keep their wealth in the shadows. Leaked records are called the Pandora Papers, and they expose a financial system that shields the deals and assets of some of the world's richest and most powerful people.
We arrived at the conclusion pretty quickly that this was going to be bombshell material. Bank accounts of politicians that showed tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars worth of assets that had never been publicly associated with these politicians or public figures before.
Over the past 2 years, journalists from 150 news organizations, including Frontline, have been examining the leaked documents.
Within 12 or 24 hours, you have reporters who are announcing that they've found offshore secretive deals related to finance ministers or their transport minister or billionaires from their country.
The leaked documents were leading directly to world leaders themselves.
We're certainly seeing powerful people for various reasons.
In all, there were more than 300 public officials around the world, and 14 cases involving current leaders of countries.
I remember it dawning upon me quite suddenly, how on earth can we hope to reform the offshore system if all of these politicians are benefiting from it?
Washington Post, Harry S. Truman, limit CIA role to intelligence. This is such a crucial document, and it's often overlooked by historians, but it's on the record. And by the second version of the Post for that day, because they used to put out 2 newspapers a day, it's taken out at the CIA request. A few things from his op-ed that I think give us some clear idea of what the Kennedys were up against, and unfortunately, the bloated version of what they were up against then is the same thing we're facing off against for the 2024 election. For some time, I've been disturbed by the way the CIA has been diverted from its original assignment. It has become an operational and at times a policy-making arm of the government. This has led to trouble and may have compounded our difficulties in several explosive areas. The fact that this quiet intelligence arm of the president has been so removed from its intended role and interpreted as a symbol of sinister and mysterious foreign intrigue. But there are some searching questions that need to be answered. I therefore would like to see the CIA be restored to its original assignment, the intelligence arm of the president, that whatever else it can properly perform in that special field, and that its operational duties be terminated or properly used elsewhere. We have grown up as a nation respected for our free institutions and for our ability to maintain a free and open society. There is something about the way the CIA has been functioning that is casting a shadow over our historic position, and I feel that we need to correct it now. Now, it's basically mend it or end it.
Dulles, the fired CIA director, who's about to become the director of the Warren Commission, goes to visit him in Missouri. And he says, you have to retract this. You have to literally write a retraction. You can't, expose our forces to this danger. And by the way, you're taking a lot on yourself by doing this. And Truman, according to his own aides, responds and says, you can't threaten me. I'm old.
The Americans knew such plans had been hatched by industry and even in the Reich Chancellery. They were also aware of a network of foreign companies set up to keep funds safe. In Monaco in particular, numerous shell corporations had access to millions. Allied agents submitted detailed reports about financial transfers. This espionage operation was led by Alan Dulles, then a US agent in Switzerland, who later rose to be head of the CIA. He knew how to use his knowledge of Nazis' financial doings to benefit his career in Washington.
At CBS, we had been contacted by the CIA. As a matter of fact, by the time I became the head of the whole news and public affairs operation in 1954, ships had been established, and I was told about them and asked if I'd carry on with them.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the national news services, AP and UPI?
Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
I think it was entirely in order for our correspondents at that time to make use of CIA agent chiefs of station and other members of the executive staff of CIA as sources of information which were useful in their assessments of world conditions.
Would you say that continues today?
Well, I would think probably for a reporter it would continue today, but because of all of the revelations of the period of the 1970s, it seems to me that a reporter's got to be much more circumspect in doing it now, or he runs the risk of at least being looked at with considerable disfavor by the public.
We have people that want to come forward, but honestly, Maria, they fear for their lives. Not only are the Biden lawyers and the Biden White House intimidating them, the media is trying to intimidate and discredit them.
The United States government has perfected a technological capability that enables us to monitor the messages that go through the air. I know the capacity that is there to make tyranny total in America. And we must see to it that this agency and all agencies that possess this technology operate within the law and under proper supervision so that we never cross over that abyss. That's the abyss from which there is no return.